Thinking was started 7 years ago. I was 22 when I started the organization. Its mission has always been to try and make being intelligent something that was cool, and kind of raising rational discourse in our society. And so, we founded the organization based on that idea, based on seeing a gap in the market. We didn't know if it was going to work. We brought our first theoretical physicist out to Australia, Michio Kaku. We sold out 3 cities and we were like, okay, there's something here. It was a little bit, people said it was a pipe dream, but we made it happen. The reason that I was always interested in this is because I'm a huge nerd. I love reading. I love listening to podcasts and watching YouTube. I love science. I love social sciences. I'm nerdy like that. And it's a big part of my life. And even if I wasn't doing this line of work, I would still be dedicating a lot of my life to that because I'm very passionate about it. My other passion is street culture and hip hop, right? And music. And so that kind of brings a different dimension to our events. So, that's why when you come to a Think Inc event, when you walk in, there's hip hop playing in the background. It's like we sell our shows like it's a hip hop gig, and we market in that way. And that's really what I guess sets us apart from universities or other organizations that might run events with intellectuals, is that we want to remind people that this should be a part of your life, a big part of your life, and it's cool to be involved in something like this. And it defines our target audiences, and obviously I've dedicated my life to it, so it's something that I'm very passionate about. That's a really interesting question. I think that maybe there's a positive outcome of socials. We always talk about all the negative parts of social media. Maybe that's one positive thing that's come out of social media, is that we can start, idolizing people of character, people that have made a big difference in the world, scientists, authors, philosophers, and really engage with their work. And I think that has elevated them to a level where people, I don't think it's good to kind of make someone into a hero, but someone into an icon maybe, so you can see them for what they are, and it makes people want to come and meet these icons and engage with their work more closely. And I think that's hugely beneficial, because at the end of the day, it can inspire people to go off and do good work themselves. So I think that we've definitely seen an uptake in intellectuals in the public realm, and I think that's a really positive thing for society. I talk to experts in marketing, and they keep saying to me, they used to say to me a minute, and then they've said 30 seconds, and now it's like, can't be longer than 15 seconds, Suze. I'm like, 15 seconds? How am I supposed to tell you about all the nuance of Peter Singer's story or whoever's story in 15 seconds? And so it's a huge challenge, because I think that what's really important is getting across nuance and context. And once we start pulling things out of that, that's where we fall into dangerous territory. And we've found that with our own events. We've found that our speakers have been deplatformed because things are pulled out of context and misinterpreted. I try to give the big picture. That's why we put people on stage to have conversations, and we let it run, and we allow questions. Because short and sharp is great, but if you don't have the opportunity for nuance, you're really missing the bigger picture there. And so, yeah, it's really challenging for us. I think it's challenging as a whole for society to try and cut everything down into these small bits and pieces. But, I don't know how even someone like you would navigate that with your platform. And I can understand why you do long form, because that, to me, makes the most sense. There's a lot of nuance in these ideas, and I think a lot of that's being lost today, unfortunately. I think that it might be the case that we're currently experiencing a pendulum swing where, we will swing into this very short, sharp TikTok style of communication, and people will realize that that is not adequate for fulfillment, because that doesn't give us the full picture. And then we'll swing back, and I think we'll land somewhere in the middle where information is consumable, but it's also detailed and nuanced. So I think that's it's something that I'm always pushing. I'm always pushing the idea that we need to hear both sides. I challenge myself a lot to listen to media that I disagree with. I keep Think Inc. apolitical, and we've toured people from the left or the right of politics or in the center of politics. And I don't mind, as long as we're bringing ideas to the stage that are progressing society, and we're bringing conversations that will help us into the future. But, you know, I see myself as kind of a progressive. I see myself as kind of a bit of a lefty, you know, and so I find it challenging sometimes to listen to hard right-wing media, but I do, because I think that if half of the population or thereabouts believes in these ideologies, I need to understand that enough so that I can make educated decisions about what I can do to assist and bring ideas to the mainstream. You know, and people often say to me, they say, oh, Suzi, why would you bring that person to Australia if you don't agree with everything they say? And I say, well, I'm not the dictator of the world or the king of the world. You know, I'm running a business which is profit for purpose. I'm trying to do good with it. And that means elevating ideas that not just I agree with, that other people will agree with, or that they will disagree with. And if we're going to have disagreements, maybe we bring two people and put them on stage so they can have a conversation. They can teach us how to have these conversations rather than us being echo chambers and not being able to break through and actually have hard conversations. So I've done this before. I did it with a tour I ran called Polarized with Dr. Cornel West and Douglas Murray, and I put them both on stage, and they're of very different political backgrounds, but you know, they ended up getting on, but we had some disagreements on stage. And there was an incident in Sydney where a boy came to the show, and I'm sorry if I'm going off topic, Jared, just bring me back in.
No, this is good. This is good.
There was a boy that came to the show. He was wearing a MAGA hat. And I was told once he was seated by security that he got shoved at the front of the venue. And I said to security, please keep an eye on him. I don't want anyone getting hurt at my event. And he got up to ask a question, and he got booed by the audience. He got yelled at and swore at by the audience when he got up to ask his question. And the men on stage had to stop and say, look, we are the display of you guys having a conversation, and we're trying to show you how two people who disagree can have a conversation. So we have to show respect to one another. And I think that's an important element that people forget, is to maybe sometimes go out of your way to be respectful of someone else's opinion, because even if they don't agree with you or maybe don't show respect to you. And I know a lot of intellectuals that do this very well. So we've been in those situations. And also my film, I've made a film called Islam and the Future of Tolerance. And this film, the two protagonists in my film are Sam Harris and Maajid Nawaz, who are two men who have opposing opinions on religion. And, you know, there's a really special line from the film that says, you know, if we don't have conversation, what do we have? Violence. And that's just not good enough. So all we can do is continue to have these conversations. And I'm sorry if I've taken us off path, but I just think that's a really important point. And I think that it's something that I always try and be aware of. I try to listen to the other side. I try to listen to podcasts where I don't particularly agree. I try and listen to news stations where I know that they have an agenda, just so that I can see some nuance and understand. I also have friends who I don't fully agree with on all topics, and I see them regularly. And we're able to have these conversations, and that's really important to me as well. So there's a couple of things that this could be stemming from. One is a tribalism, and one is trying to find identity and community, right? And I think that that's what we're kind of seeing now in society, that people are trying to work out what their identity is and then fall within that, and then everyone else that's outside of that or might criticize that is not within their tribe, therefore they're entitled to criticize them. And I think that's quite a dangerous thing. And I mean, yes, maybe it stems from us, you know, long ago being in certain tribes and protecting our own, but as the world has become globalized, I think that we need to kind of see differences as a positive thing and start allowing that to exist within society without pushing back with such harshness. But, you know, what do you think? Why do you think that there was booing? I think it's an interesting topic to discuss. I agree that it's great that people are proud of their origins and all of that. But I do think that sometimes if identity comes above other things like common humanity, it becomes a problem. And I think that maybe that is the reason why it's turned so negative, is because people are holding not only their identity, but the identity of others above humanity, like general humanity. And I think that becomes an issue. Regardless of the color of someone's skin, I don't think that you can box them in. And as much as people want to be, they want to identify with that and then push that as their kind of, I am this color and I'm proud of that. It can't be over people's common humanity. So that's kind of how I think about that. So I tend to agree with you. It's good to be proud of your origin, but I don't think that should come in the way of civility, I guess. I found this really frustrating when it came to my film, because people would see I had Sam Harris in the film, and they would say the film about Sam Harris and Maajid, and they would say, oh, the film is Islamophobic. And that was really frustrating to me, because they didn't watch the film to know whether it was or wasn't. And it's something that really frustrates me about people making suggestions about intellectuals or about people's perspectives, is they actually haven't gone and read the work. And I don't know that you're well placed to make critical judgment of a piece of work without having read it yourself, because people will read it and interpret it in different ways, and you can always find your bias. If you want an interpretation of Jordan Peterson's work to be that he is, some sort of form of toxic masculinity or whatever, you're going to be able to find it, right? You can interpret it in the way that you want to. But what's important is that if you read it and then you see that in it, okay, I'll give you that credit. But if you're only listening to other people's opinions about it, or you're pulling something from the way that it's said, or like you're saying from the way the interviewer has questioned, I don't think that that is legitimate. And I think that's a huge detriment to society, and a huge detriment to the progression of conversation, because it means that we become boxed in. And it comes back to the conversation of kind of listening to ideas you disagree with, because that's how you're going to remain open-minded and nuanced. And it's funny, a lot of people kind of on the center right of politics say to me, because they assume that I follow the same kind of ideologies that they do because I talk to them. And when I say, no, I'm a lefty, I'm progressive, I'm vegetarian, they're like, oh, how did they not get to you and brainwash you? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm a very curious person, and I want to know. So we have to maintain that curiosity. Each of us do. And we need to be out there reading and listening, and not just being influenced by what we read in the newspapers, or what we read or what we hear from a critic. And yes, I've been in the situation where people haven't wanted to work on a project that I've been involved in because they didn't know the nuance, and it happens still till today. At the moment, we're working on a documentary with Peter Singer, and I still have people that don't want to be involved in the documentary because they take things that Peter says out of context. And as much as I try and give, the context of things, it becomes incredibly difficult to try and progress the conversation when you're one of the only ones yelling that we need to hear the nuance and hear the context. I feel so torn about the current state of social media, especially when it comes to deciding whether these organizations have the right to cancel people, shut down certain types of information. I'm so torn. They're private organizations, they're companies. I run a company. I know we can put out there what we want to put out, but they're also so ingrained in our lives that people forget that these are private companies with agendas, and that is very dangerous. Because it's like the government has given us Facebook and they said, oh, here you go, now you can connect with the rest of the world without the agenda of profit, or without the agenda of everything else that Zuck or all the other leaders of the organizations have. And once we forget that they're private organizations, we forget the agendas, and therefore we no longer critique the information that they're providing to us, or they're allowing us to see, or what they're choosing to cancel, or what they're choosing to ban. And at the same time, I think they have a moral obligation to ensure that what is out on their platforms does not inspire violence or incite violence or cause harm, or, you know, of course there shouldn't be beheadings on there or child pornography or any of that stuff. They definitely need to have some moral standard, but who's setting that moral standard? I feel really, really torn about this issue. And I lean on people like Tristan Harris and Jonathan Haidt, and even people like Sam Harris, who's come out and spoken about it, because, well, not only do they have the research and the data to back their opinions about what social media is doing to the world and doing to us, and how things should be run, but also the people that I respect and look up to as well. So I'm really torn about the issue in itself. And I think that it's incredibly dangerous that there are algorithms and systems that are telling us what to think. And we've seen it again and again. We've seen it with documentaries like The Social Dilemma. There's a New York Times podcast called, I think it's called Down the Rabbit Hole, where we've seen people fall into this trap. You know, they might listen to something, oh, that sounds interesting. And then they start listening to more and more, and more gets presented to them. It's not even that they're really looking for it, but they can't escape it once they start. And that creates echo chambers. And I think that's what you're, you know, alluding to there, that the walls of the box are getting thicker and thicker. And it's more difficult to get outside that once you're in it. And I think that that's a huge challenge, and I don't know how we're going to overcome it. And I think that we have delved into the world of social media without the adequate rules and regulations that allow us to do this in a way that's good for our mental health, that's good for society's progression, that's good for ideas to flourish. At the same time, gosh, am I grateful that we were able to, through 2020, when we couldn't run in-person events, still have an opportunity to get it out there to audiences and elevate ideas through social media, through our website, through being able to live in this globalized world where we're still connected even when we're not able to physically be connected. So, oh boy, am I grateful for that. And I think that if you use it in a strategic way that allows you to maintain your curiosity. You know, don't just like everything that you agree with, like some things that you don't agree with, so that your feed can be a little bit mixed up, because I don't know how to control these agendas from these huge corporates. What I think is that we just need to work out how to manipulate the system enough so that we are able to get what we need out of it. And as consumers, I think that's all we can do in the meanwhile. And we need to keep lobbying and pushing for them to be accountable. And we need to keep on discovering the ways that we think they should be accountable, and start setting up some rules and regulations as a society as to what we think is right and wrong about the way that those organizations are run. Huge challenges ahead of us. And I think there's people out there that are doing really great work on it. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot, and I really want to elevate and showcase through the thinking channels as well. Well, I guess firstly to say we're coming back this year. You know, we've got Peter Singer touring in August, which I'm so thrilled about. That's my first not-for-profit tour where we've got to come back, and we are. And I've been working really hard over this last year to make sure we're in a position where we can come back, which is very challenging. And we've learned a lot of lessons over this last year. 2020 was a very, very difficult year for the entertainment industry, and that's, I guess, where we fall into. We tour international names across Australia and New Zealand, and without the opportunity to congregate, we lost all the opportunity to do that, and which was very difficult. And I have shed my fair share of tears around that. But we pivoted quickly. We made the most of 2020. We ran a range of online live events. We ran a series called Outside the Box at the start of 2020, which you can find all on YouTube. And then at the end of 2020, we ran a series with my friend Claire Lehman, who runs Quillette, called Free Thought Live. And in both instances, we platformed these brilliant minds. And we learned some lessons. And getting to your question, from that, we decided that there's an opportunity to disrupt some of this education space. There is an opportunity to start thinking about ways that people are consuming media and education differently than they originally were. You know, we today have access to information at our fingertips. And there is a range of online courses, pre-recorded online courses that you can do. And a lot of people download and then they never get to, or they don't complete. But also there's just a huge amount of information online. What we want to put together is a platform where not only can you learn, but you can also build community and get to know one another, because we know that people have been feeling isolated. People do feel sometimes, even when it wasn't a pandemic, they feel isolated in the way that they think about the world, and they want to get to know people who think about the world similarly to them. And so I really had the objective of providing opportunity to build community and for people to connect no matter where you are in the world through online platforms, and get to know people and be able to share in, like I said, the community of people that share ideas or disagree with you, and build on that. And so, yes, it is about education and it is about learning, but it's also about personal development and growth and accountability. And so I'm really excited to be doing that. And I'm really happy to tell you more about it once we have a few more ducks in a row and a little bit more in order. And we'll come back and chat about it a bit more, but I'm really thrilled to be kind of delving into that area, along with bringing back large scale, public thinking events as soon as we can. And we're gonna blast into that end of this year and into 2022. So I want you all to think about coming out and checking some of that out too.